Oh, uh, thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. Thank you very much, Neosmotic and Jason, for having us at this wonderful Neos EDU Science community presentation. And Kreolis and myself are overjoyed to introduce our GPT-3 chatbot project, Quantum Bar, serving engaging AI conversations in social VR to you. But let's start with an introduction of ourselves. So my name in VR is Xaos Princess, and in real life I'm called Christina Kinne. And in the first half of my life, I've been a filmmaker, and I got a art school diploma, which is translated to Master of Arts in Film and Television Feature from Munich Film School. And after that, I became pregnant, and suddenly in like 2013, 14, 15, my social life came to a total halt, and I was pretty lonely being like a screenwriter on my computer. But my social life was saved by receiving my pre-ordered HTC Vive in 2016, and I was so lucky to quite soon encounter High Fidelity, which has been Philip Rosedale's social VR platform, like a successor of Second Life, and High Fidelity was where I gained all my content creation spores and learned all my skills, and where like my dream of living in the metaverse became true. But unfortunately, in early 2020, High Fidelity pivoted to doing spatial audio, so I jumped on board with Tivoli Cloud VR, who forked the High Fidelity code, and I've been with them as a chief marketing officer and events manager. But unfortunately, as of last week, Tivoli Cloud VR closed as well. But I was lucky, and later in the talk, I'm gonna refer to the best pivotal moment, which happened to last November. And what I also did to keep busy in the pandemic was I picked up a second round of Master of Arts studies, this time in digital narrative at the International Film School Cologne. And now I give it to Kreolis.
Hey, I'm Kreolis. My real name is Marius, and I come from a completely different background. I'm a physicist by trade. I finished also my physics degree in Munich, and then, I'm also a little bit part of the film industry. So that's actually how we met. Because I'm in the committee of the Short Film Festival. It's quite nice actually if you have time and the travel money. You should join. And and now I'm in Finland doing my PhD in satellite systems, so not related at all to this, other than the coding, I guess. Back to you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And by the way, I'm the project lead, and Kreolis is the technical director. This is the jobs we chose for ourselves. And now we're going to structure the talk in like 4 parts. We have the team introduction, and now we want to talk about Quantum Bar, the social VR experience. So very early in my studies, my professors urged me to pick up a practical digital narratives project. So I did a lot of ideation. And the first thing I did, like a good entrepreneur, is like I identified a problem, which is lonely social VR users. So that happened to me on High Fidelity as well as on Tivoli Cloud. Finally, you get spare time, you log into VR, and you are in the most beautiful 3D environments, but none of your friends is online. So after 5 minutes, you log out again and go Netflix and chill. And this leads, of course, to low concurrent user numbers if everybody does that. So the idea is to give people an engaging activity so that they stick around and that they like drag more of their friends in because they see them online. So the idea for our project, the solution to that problem is to open the quantum bar in social VR and to serve engaging AI conversations 24/7 in order to give users something socially engaging to do and to collect like crowds and circles of friends. And here is the pitch for our experience. It's imagine a bar with an AI bartender that offers you a drink. You are in the metaverse, and the bartender is an artificial intelligence with whom you can have engaging conversations around the clock. And I read that in such a holy tone because this pitch isn't written by me or Kreolis, but by the star of our show, which is GPT-3, or in longer spelled out form, it's the Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3 by OpenAI. And this is the third generation of their language prediction models. It uses machine learning to analyze and compose text, and it's trained on 175 billion learning parameters, or rather to say, on all of Wikipedia and on all of the most liked Reddit threads. So it earned like a lot of training data. And what's so groundbreaking about GPT-3 is that it can be prompted and programmed in human language. So you don't have to be an AI IT specialist and coach the whole rules of the conversation, but it's a very easy and powerful tool, especially for artists, creators, narrators who aren't necessarily that well knowledgeable in AI programming. And here comes our planned user journey. So the idea is to have the quantum bar in NeosVR or in social VR and have like as soon as the user approaches the barkeeper greets the user and offers them an uplifting conversation, being empathetic to the user's joys and sorrows, but also like informative if the user has inquiries. As an additional feature, we also want to use sentiment detection and read out the mood of every dialogue line of the user and use that to steer music and lights in the quantum bar world. And since memory is incredibly expensive for AIs, we only want to limit the conversation to a maximum of 10 minutes. And after that, the barkeeper will say his farewell and gift the user with like a souvenir card on which the whole conversation is summarized and which can be like saved into the inventory and later on also like downloaded from our homepage. And I give it to Kreolis now for describing our signal flow, our working prototype, and our planned features.
Yeah, so you heard now basically the high-level description about what we are doing, and now I'm going a little bit more in detail about the low-level, the low-level interface which the user doesn't see. So, I mean, what we are getting from NeosVR or from any kind of social VR platform is first of all the audio, that you are talking to like an avatar or an instance or an object in the world, and that's we can grab onto a like with speech recognition. So we are going this direction, and so the AI avatar gets then text to speech, speech to text. So basically we are using, at the moment we're using Google to translate your English to written text. And the written text then gets sent to GPT-3 because GPT-3 doesn't have a audio input yet. I don't know if they are even planning that, but text-based AI. So we are also getting then a text back from GPT-3. And this then obviously has to be converted to speech. And this speech is then played through the avatar in the social VR environment. And then you can hear it as a user, obviously. Advance the slide, please. All right. So this is what we are currently having. And the idea of expansion would be what Chaos already said. We want to implement a little bit more lifelike features, like the mood of the dialogue should be reflected also in the environment, and maybe also some gesticulations and animations of the character, just to make it a little bit more lifelike. And it helps also to create a little bit more the feeling that you're actually talking to an avatar or to not some kind of program in the background, but actually an AI with a body that is standing in front of you. So for that, we are currently using the Da Vinci engine, and GPT-3 has multiple engines that you can use. They're differently trained a little bit, and they're also different. Are costing more computational power and also money. And the most expensive and most accurate one we are using for the dialogue generation, and there we want to have a proper summarization done and then give it out as a souvenir card. But we can also do a little bit, use a little bit lower engine and use this to detect your sentiment. So at the moment we are doing 3 stages of sentiment: positive, neutral, and negative. And then we could use this data to change some entity, color, maybe the music, maybe even more. So that's the whole idea about the back end. And I'm giving it back to you, Chaos, for your more philosophical
yeah, it gets philosophical for now.
Yes.
It's also like let's talk about the scope, which starts in the present. So what we're currently busy working on is to create a showcase of the quantum bar on NeosVR and to make it work here and user test here. And derived from this, we also want to create a standalone, so to say, festival installation, which we want to showcase at films and arts festivals, as well as tech and healthcare conferences. And then once everything is running smoothly and we're live, we also hope to create 3 more bartenders for the quantum bar, and also experiment with the different characterization possibilities which such an chatbot could have. And a dream of mine for the very, very long run is to hook up with psychologists in order to turn this idea of a empathic AI chatbot into a mental health care application. But this is something I'd only dare in collaboration with professionals. Now we come to part 3 of the talk, which is my Master of Arts thesis. So the quantum bar is my digital narratives thesis project at the International Film School Cologne. And yeah, this is how studying looks like in pandemic times. And I always can't wait till they transfer that into social VR. I always want to get out of Zoom, but it doesn't work. And as a topic for my, here I start from the bottom up. So I'm very lucky and blessed to have two of the most prominent German tech and digital narratives researchers as examiners. One is Gundolf S. Freimuth. He's basically the guy who brought like digitality, digital art, games studies to Germany already back in the 90s. And he like made me the person I am now, or even if I didn't know down his name back in the 90s. And Martin Gantefer has been a digital narratives writer. He wrote like the story for half of German video games, and he's also at his art school, Fine Arts University Essen. He's also already experimenting with GPT-3, so I'm really blessed to work with these two German researchers. And the topic for my MA thesis is creating a GPT-3-driven chatbot for social virtual reality with a very broad research question: how can various methods of immersive design be used to deepen the emotional connection to a GPT-3-driven chatbot? And the thing is that I'm focusing more on the practical project, and I was allowed to write the thesis more as like a concise overview, like a manual, what to take into account when developing a GPT-3-driven chatbot for social VR. And I hope that this will become like an inspiring paper for other researchers to pick up and go more in depth on the certain subchapters. And I have like 3 main focal points. So one is, of course, create an immersive experience that is enjoyable for both, for new users as well as for heavy VR users, which is quite a balance to keep, because immersive environments often get boring for heavy users. But if you make it interesting for heavy users right from the get-go, you might chase away somebody who's in VR for the first time. So this is something to keep in mind. And I will focus also like on the onboarding, respectively entering the enchanted place. There my main source will be Janet Murray, who did like a great overview on how to design immersively in her groundbreaking paper Hamlet on the Holodeck. And we also want to make this exercise this practically by making the onboarding as easy as possible. And we also want to provide like a little variety of avatars for new users, because I think it's also like very important that if somebody is the first time in VR, that they feel good in the avatar's body, and not everybody is happy with just floating hands. So that's why we want to make the onboarding as good as possible and also provide users with good bodies. Then for the immersive design as such, like this, like how to keep it interesting, how to educate people. For this, I'm mainly going to focus on Jeremy Bailenson work, who already did a great piece about ocean acidification and the idea how VR can make you learn by experience. And then for the end of the experience, which is also very important, because often like experiences just start and users like do their thing and solve some riddles, but often you don't know the end of the experience, and then it just like fizzles out and nobody really remembers it. And so the debriefing, or I bought this term from Christopher Vogler, the return with the elixir is also very important. So that's why we also want to mark the end of our experience by issuing that summary card and by having the barkeeper really say farewell, our time is up. Our time is not quite up yet. We got 2 more academic slides. So then my next focal point will be the ethical considerations. There are quite a bunch. And for that, I'm going to focus on Batya Friedman's work on value-sensitive design. And the first thing which is very important when working with like AIs that are trained on human data is to mitigate the risk of pre-existing and emergent bias. So pre-existing bias is the bias which has always been around. Like, for example, if GPT-3 is trained on all of Wikipedia, like 80% of Wikipedia articles are written by men, and always like men are quoted on the cool stuff, and girls are only quoted if it comes to looking nice. So this is a pre-existing bias which has to be countered by the backend developers and also by people using that servers. And I have to say that I'm deeply impressed on what efforts OpenAI have made in the last 2 years. Like 2 years ago, when I got the academic access permitted, it was still like kind of creepy how you could trigger a conversation which would go into a like biased or racist direction. It was really scary. And now for my research, I tried the same again. And like the harder I tried to steer the conversation into like a racist direction, the fiercer the lectures our chatbots gave me became. So OpenAI is really doing a good job on their back end. And they're also offering a content filter, which we will employ. But there's also the issue of emergent bias, which is there. The best example is the pronoun discussion. So now it's a no-brainer to ask somebody for their pronouns first. But 10 years ago, that idea wasn't even coined yet. So if society or cultural values change, this leads to an emergent bias, and we have to take up with these changes. And this is also what OpenAI will implement on their back end, but what also we have to take care of. And that's why we also gonna like monitor our conversations and implement and maintain a library of like bad word filters, like in which directions we don't want the conversation to go. And then the second point in ethical considerations is also the possibility of confusion. This is especially for social VR users. We are used to conversation partners using text-to-speech or a voice distorter. So bottom line is, when I'm talking to a beautiful fox in VR and the fox has like a distorted voice, I think I'm talking to a human. And with GPT-3 being no human but an AI, that could have like devastating consequences. Like, imagine somebody falls in love with an AI-driven chatbot, and then after 6 months, shortly before I hop on a plane and meet you, finds out that this is actually a machine they're in love with. Yeah, that could lead to great sadness, and therefore we want to be transparent about the chatbot's nature as an AI, as a machine. And the third thing we also want to keep in mind is to prevent misuse, because GPT-3 is not only a great tool for artists and narrators, but also for trolls. Like imagine, like now on Twitter, you can identify by text modules, or this is written by a bot. But GPT-3 could write like text pieces totally coined for the language colloquial style of the target, and therefore it's always, and any great technology has two sides. So there's a big misuse potential in GPT-3. So we have to make sure that our chatbot application isn't like used like a sneak around to work the OpenAI for bad reasons. And we have still a good standing there with social VR, so it's probably per default quite difficult to stream any conversations out, but just to keep this risk in mind. And now comes my favorite topic or focal point of my thesis and project, which is enhancing the ELIZA effect through NPC plausibility. So the ELIZA effect was discovered by Joseph Weizenbaum, who built the first chatbot ever back in 1965. And this worked like a Rogerian psychotherapist, mirroring back the statements of the user as questions. And Weizenbaum went out of his mind when his secretary suddenly asked him for privacy to talk to ELIZA, and when like all kinds of psychologists and psychotherapists suddenly promoted that as an idea of automated psychotherapy. So Joseph Weizenbaum was really dragged down by this idea. But for us, it's important, it works. And if it even worked like more than 50 years ago with a rule-based chatbot, it works even better with GPT-3, which attunes itself to the conversation partner's colloquial style. And of course, it's also important in the avatar representation to avert uncanny valley effect, like to give the avatar a non-human appearance and also voice. And now comes my very, 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 very favorite part, which is the plausibility and synchronicity. This is a idea Mel Slater originally coined, which is you have to structure the chatbot's appearance and movements according to the flow of the conversation. And therefore, we want to implement 3 kinds of animations, like idle, if nobody is around, talking like I do, and also like thinking, like some head scratching, to give a reason for our like 1-2 seconds lag, which we don't come beneath. And okay, so now I come to the super pivotal moment, which made me totally happy when I anticipated that maybe Tivoli wouldn't last forever. which is like in November last year. I went to see Alien Rescue by Jason Moore and team and ensemble, and this was one of the best evenings in my virtual and in my real life ever. Not only because Alien Rescue actually looked like a AAA game. It was amazing what Jason and team pulled off there in terms of rendering quality and how the whole world looked, but it was also such a great social evening, and it was just heartwarming to be there. And so these were like, yeah, the main reasons also to bring this project to Neos, like the creative community. I've seen the most inspiring projects and the most welcoming atmosphere of all social VR platforms I've seen in here. Then it's also, in our opinion, currently the most versatile and potent platform on the market. Like I talked about the rendering, the logic scripting, the headless servers, and the peer-to-peer functionality. Then, which was important for me, was the easy accessibility via Steam. So this grants me that I can get also my examiners and professors in to see it. And I hope I don't trigger a wasp nest there, but I was also very happy to hear about the in-world economy, because Neos credits would give us an option to like refinance token costs, which can become quite expensive, maybe through an automated smart contract entrance fee or pay-per-talk system. And now this is my second last slide. Now I come to commissions and collaborations. So by commissions, I mean, I'm very happy that my university has provided me with a little fiat money budget. And so we could really use some help on UI tutoring for logics and for 3D building. So it's so much fun to build and to create in Neos, but sometimes we are like, what button do I have to press to open which window? And or maybe outsource logic scripting itself. So if somebody would like to help us with getting our souvenir card in, or streaming the material colors with sentiment detection, that would be awesome. Then there's a few more general things. We always could use advice on setting up a headless server, and also, yeah, I had that already for the souvenir card, on displaying third-party content in world. And now always also on the last line, this is for me at the moment the most important function I'm hoping to get to the chatbot, is the implementation of triggerable animations, idle talking and thinking, for a desktop avatar, namely the Neos Facebook 2021. And in addition to these commissions, which I could actually like pay for, we also hope for collaborations. So on the one hand, I'd be overjoyed if there's other GPT-3 researchers in the community. So maybe we could hook up and design like 3 additional barkeepers together, or have like a whole GPT-3 driven bar stuff. Then what would also be amazing, and I'm looking at Jeremy now and at Alex, and would be maybe we can really, as AI researchers per se, get together and design like a joint experience, which takes like all kinds of AI projects together and issue this as like an AI fair, or also go to this with festivals to educate the public about AI. So that would be something amazing too. And then last not least, for the long run, I'm dreaming of working together with mental health care professionals to really do like a legit life coaching bot. And now comes my last slide. Thank you very much for the attention, and I'm so happy that you are all here.
And now we are open for questions, at least for a short amount of time.
Thank you, Kreolis and Xaos Princess, for this thought-provoking talk. So, question from the floor.
Just raise your hand if you have one.
Yeah. Shoot.
Go for it. Put yourself in counting mode, please. Yep.
Oh, goodness.
You can get a question.
There we go. Am I doing it now? Am I shouting?
No, the yellow button,
Oh,
the
I
yellow
see.
microphone.
Great. It's just not letting me do it. I don't know.
Okay, that's
All
fine.
right, we can hear you. Just talk.
So I've seen your work since you were making NPCs in high fidelity way back in the day, and always been a fan. I've worked in immersive theater as well as mental health for VR, creating worlds for therapy sessions, and there is a really interesting crossover. So the parts that concern me most are A, is there the ability for future bots to remember conversations with people and address past conversations? And then B, about half of communication is physical context cues they found from some older research, but I'm wondering how you're going to advance the language of physical communication along with the GPT-3 conversations. Thank you.
So first, for the memory aspect, that's actually not a real easy task. So what we do currently is we feed the whole previous communication back to GPT-3 as a prompt, so that after 5 minutes it still remembers your name from your first sentence. But there are ways to do this. So you could like summarize the previous conversation and would have like a database for each user on which like GPT-3 could look to. Still, yeah, that's a hard endeavor, and the same goes.
Maybe I can add here two things. So this kind of it's limited by the tokens we can use per prompt. That is the biggest problem that we have. So we cannot just use infinite amount of tokens per prompt to GPT-3. That means also even if we are including a summary of the previous chats, then you have the problem that the chats would shorten over time. So the first chat would be 10 minutes, and then with like the 10th chat would be maybe 5 minutes, because the summary gets longer and longer, and that is, for example, at the moment what I'm thinking is one of the problems. And the second one is a data security problem that we have, because we would somehow have to detect kind of the user and have to store data of the user, and then we have to get his consent that we can save his data. If we are doing it right now, like we're doing it right now, we don't have the problem. The data is nowhere saved other than during the actual conversation, and after that, of course, in your in the souvenir card. But that's all. Yeah, we are not keeping any data of you. So there's a little bit of a trade-off that we have to do here, I guess.
Yeah, making it HIPAA compliant sounds complicated.
It's for our application, it's good because we are like also very privacy concerned, and so that's why we want to keep it like 10 minutes is what you get. 10 minutes the chatbot will remember, and then it starts anew. That was also a reason for the choice of a bartender, because with a bartender it makes more sense if he doesn't remember every single customer. But it is done with Replica. Replica actually trains their model on these specific users. But yeah, this is a feature for actual collaboration, because on the one hand you'd need like psychology professionals on board to make sense of the data, and on the other hand you'd need a database for every user. And with your second question regarding the gestures, this is also a thing for collaboration that I yet again looking at Jeremy. I know that Jeremy and his colleague Professor Steve DiPaola are doing good research with that at Simon Fraser University. But this would be a modular thing. For the moment we are only dealing with the audio signal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Looking at Jeremy.
Before we turn into a conversation here, let me try to get another question from the back of the room over there. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I can't hear him.
Nanotopia. Can I hear you?
I think I was just scratching my head.
That's good. Oh,
Sorry. Yeah.
fair enough.
No,
All right. Emish.
Hello, and thanks for an excellent talk. I'm also really fascinated by your mental health application, because in our country, in Australia at least, we're having a huge epidemic of mental health problems at the moment, mostly as a result of lockdowns and the like.
Not only you, yes. It's all over the world.
I guess that's true all over the world. And we're also suffering a bit because it's taking some years. There'll be a lag between our efforts to train up a whole lot more psychologists and their graduation. And so there's a really serious window for us, especially in remote and rural locations. As you know, Australia's an enormous empty country. And I wonder whether you think there's any fantasy of your application being brought to bear during that couple of years, or are we talking about a distant future fantasy?
It's hard to pinpoint dates on that, because like the motivation for us was exactly the same. Like COVID triggered a mental health crisis. The waiting times for therapy becomes longer and longer. Still really automating this and creating it in a way that it's not maleficent. That's really a tough endeavor. So our idea is mainly, first of all, to work with a raw GPT-3 model, which actually, using that Rogerian ELIZA trick, is already for me pretty soothing. So if I want to talk about something, I can go to the chatbot. But first of all, we want to stage like a working prototype. So yeah, here is the proof that the AI can read what the user thinks and can have like a natural, nice conversation with it. And working up from this, it would would be rather a big dream, but this is like getting more departments, so to say, on board. Also like the gesture recognition, and a psychologist who helps to write the GPT-3 prompting, because this is something I unfortunately haven't studied. So it's rather maybe in 3 years.
I can add maybe a little bit. I think actually we could do it quicker. It's very much depending on what the actual psychologist would research in that case. So I think if in some cases you can make already like patient studies with like this year if it really was required, but that it's depending on the use case, I think, very much actually.
Sure. I think that's, again, why you should perhaps start with youth mental health, because I think that would be less maybe technical and also the more approachable for the use of the technology. So I think that's a really exciting area. So thank you.
Thank you.
But
Another
now
question.
you have
Yes.
a question.
Have a question.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Yeah.
Have you considered, or maybe you've worked with any open BCI technology? Like, I'm wondering if you could integrate something that does potentially read emotion, heart rate, and when you speak of gestural, of course, I thought of that as I'm currently working on something with a neuroscientist, and we're awaiting the Gallia headset, for instance, from OpenBCI. But yeah, so I just wonder, like, if that's something that could be integrated with this AI.
I think yes, definitely it could be implemented. So actually, Chaos and I did have a project already in this kind of sense with the, how's it called, the headband you have? Yeah, exactly.
We steered lights of listeners of a classical concert with the Muse headset.
Exactly. So, and if we're going with the same concept, then I think you can do it, but I would not do that in Neos or like as a public server or something like that, but rather for an experience, like for where you go in and get all the gear from us, and then you go like in VR and do it, because I think to synchronize all of the different stuff to Neos is quite heavy, and it has to be set up, and then the user is there also that has to do it. I mean, I cannot trigger the connection to your computer and so on. This is
yes, exactly.
Yeah, but I think for experience that is definitely doable in the future. Yes.
Now I think like I'm such a big BCI fan as well, and I'm so much looking forward to that Index headset which is announced. And actually, like when being on the ideation phase for my thesis project, I had like 2 BCI ideas as well. Still, I think for this GPT-3 application, we still have to keep in mind that GPT-3 is like mainly language driven. So I guess that one could use BCI as like a means of support, but the core functionality is about dialogue.
Just for the audience, what is BCI or PCI?
Brain-computer interface.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, thanks, Chaos. Okay, a question here from Deka. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Chaos and Kreolis, for that wonderful talk. I had a question related to your main research question, which was, if I understand correctly, about identifying these immersive methods for an immersive experience. So I already see that you have a couple of cool ideas, like changing the atmosphere based on a person's mood and giving a handout at the end of the experience. My question is, like, do you think there are any methods or like approaches to immersion that you have in mind, but it's currently not feasible with the current state of technology in VR?
There's like one design approach I have like written over my imaginative bed, which is like keep it imaginative, because at the moment we can't deliver state-of-the-art realism, and so currently, as I see it, VR technology is like VFX technology in the early 2000s, late 90s. Like VR is in the state of the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, and it's gonna become better and better and better. So yeah, currently we also have like this accessibility hurdle, and at the moment we have to have like this good mixture. Like it can't be that you have to have like a 3080 Ti and a supercomputer to render that experience that would make a great experience for like 20 people. But yeah, on the other hand, we also don't want to. That's why we are on Neos. We don't want to use only like quest performance, low polygon ideas. So I think, yeah, currently with immersive design, we have to find the right balance between accessibility and technical conditions, and work with imagination. Like here as well, like yeah, let's have a nice dome. We can't. It would be too many polygons to put in the foyer of the United Nations, but use something else which looks good and be imaginative, so that you don't fall into the uncanny valley, even if it comes to approach display of realistic environments. So at the moment, but it's really like the Wild West, and this is also very exciting at the moment.
Yeah,
Very
thank you.
exciting indeed. Thank you very much, Deka, for your question, and very much for the audience for all the questions. We need to be mindful of the time. Jason,
Jeremy
time-wise-
wanted to ask something.
we need to be mindful on the time. This is a stream live.
Yeah.
Jason, can we take another question?
One more of Jeremy. I've seen him
All right.
raise his hand from the
Okay.
beginning of the Q&A.
Last question from Jeremy. Yep.
Hey, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome.
Oh, okay, sounds good. Just quickly about BCI. BCI and Neos do work together already. It's just a case of WebSocketing to expand that out, and there's WebSocket capabilities already within Neos. So we can have a discussion about that later. I've been wanting to do a BCI NPC for a while now, for a few years. Okay, but the question. Okay, so you have a quantum bar, right? Is that a bar with drinks?
Yes.
Virtual drinks, because I know you can, at least I know from personal experience, don't want to get too personal, but I know you can get virtually loaded inside of NeosVR without having to drink actual food, right?
Yes.
And also, you can also, people, as I've seen, especially in VR chat, people drink a lot of real booze and go to bars inside of VR, right?
Yes.
What I'm trying to ask is, you have a slide on ethics and GPT and trying to censor out the bad words and the unpleasant kinds of responses to conversations, but in the bar, I'm wondering if you think, how are you going to manage the ethical tightrope issue of drunk people interacting with your quantum bartender all the time, drunk or actually drunk?
It's you hit a crucial spot there, because this is actually something I'm torn apart about, because like the original idea to go for a bar was, we're looking for a character and for an environment which doesn't necessarily need to remember its customers, but provides still intimate conversations. So the second guess would have been like a hairdresser's saloon, but then we thought like, yeah, bar is more something everybody knows. And now I found those nice array of bottles on Sketchfab, which actually gives you like an immediate good impression of this is a bar and not just a quantum computer. But I'm torn apart if I might retexture those bottles. So it's actually an issue that there's a lot of alcohol happening in bars. But our bottom idea was to have like a community place, an environment like a bar, but we'll have to see with that also with our bad words library and the idea how we steer the conversation, because of course we don't want to promote drunkenness and boost.
Let's say it's not your regular bar in over the street, so but it's more a fancy hotel bar where you behave for the moment.
Great. Thank you very much, Kreolis and Xaos Princess, for this talk. There were so many questions that I wanted to ask, but I keep that for late. Thank you, Jason, again for the technique, and our apology for the late start due to some technicality, but we're going to try to fix that in the coming days. Thank you again for coming along. For those of you here present in that room, Princess and Kreolis have offered us maybe to have a quick peek at this quantum bar. Want to stay a bit longer? We have a chance to have a look at the world. And in the meantime, thanks again, everybody, from watching on Twitch. And we will see you next couple of weeks for our next talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you
And
so
thanks
much
again.
for having us. And thank you so much for joining.